start of the 16th round. Ferns is driving Smith all over the ring with lefts and rights. Smith is rushing to avoid punishment, and he's paying no attention whatsoever what the referee has to say. And he's constantly following on the brakes as he tries to avoid further punishment as Ferns chases him throughout the ring.
Give the sucker some action. Fighting like a bum. Want some advice?
What?
Cold beer here. Cheers. And welcome to the Historical Boxing Society podcast. Today we examined one of the great welterweights of all time, Jim Ferns, or as he was better known as, Rube Ferns. The Rube, the Kansas Rube, is what the newspapers called him. Today we're going to start with a little story that I have for you about Rube Ferns, and it goes like this. Ferns sprang over the coping to the street below and seized the nearest horse by the bit. After being dragged several yards, finding that he could not stop the frightening animals by merely holding them, as soon as he found the opportunity, he hit with all his force on the jugular of the brute horse and felled him, saving the runaway carriage and helping a stranded little girl that was stuck on the carriage as it broke away. Ferns knocked out the horse and saved the day like Superman. And many nights in the ring, he performed like Superman, doing some rather incredible feats, as we are soon about to hear. Ferns knocked out that horse in 1902. He was no longer champion, but he still had plenty of power left in his arms. Today we're going to start with, we'll get the preliminaries out of the way here, and then we'll go into a little bit on the bio of Rube Ferns as he tells a story about how he got his nickname, the Rube. So number 55 boxer here on this list of the top 59. And number 55, Rube Ferns, born in 1873. And he was from Kansas. He was a coal miner. That was the job he had before he became a boxer. And ironically, it was also the job that he obtained after he retired from boxing. His biography. Ferns debuted at the age of 22. He was awkward. He had a self-taught approach. He would fight until the age of 34, when he went back to his pre-fighting job of coal mining, and also served as a referee throughout his career, basically from the beginning of about 1899 to maybe like 1909. He served as referee. Not super active, but about 20 fights total. So a lot of these boxers served as referees throughout their career, with the most famous being Jersey Joe Walcott. His fighting style, it would be considered unorthodox or awkward, as he was a self-taught fighter. He came from no academy. Next would be his competitive rounds fought. He is 163 competitive rounds fought, as we are going to go through the competitive rounds that Rube Ferns fought. By competitive rounds, that just means a championship caliber fight. Let's see here. So, Matty Matthews, his chief rival, he was at 167 competitive rounds, and Rube Ferns is right there with him with 163 competitive rounds. They're neck and neck, basically. My score for Rube Ferns, 30. 30 is a pretty high score, and definitely one of the higher scores of the fighters around this range. As a comparison to Matty Matthews, my score for him was 14, and Rube Ferns is at 30. The chief nemesis for Rube Ferns' career would be Matty Matthews, as he fought him 6 times, and they went back and forth in the beginning between their matchups on who was better. But Rube Ferns had an advantage on him. That's why he is ranked ahead of Matty Matthews. Rube Ferns' greatest achievement. This happened in the early days of the year 1900 in January. Just a mere week or 2 weeks into the new century, he defeated mysterious Billy Smith for the welterweight title. And that was Rube Ferns' greatest achievement. So how did Rube Ferns do in simulation? Let's take a look here. I have my notes. So in simulation, Rube Ferns, he was very skilled, and he had a lot of great big wins, as he had a very excellent prime, and he showed the potential to upset better boxers, I would say, is how I'd phrase it, as he had a pretty high ceiling, so his simulation is going to be show that fact. Some simulation matches that he was in and got the better of. He drawed with Jack Bonner, which is a middleweight farther up this list. He got a win over the Dixie Kid. He got a win over Mysterious Billy Smith, who is just a couple of slots ahead of him. So all the people around the ranking of Rube Ferns here, he's able to beat. He had a win over Jim Flynn. He had a win over George Byers. He had a win over George LeBlanc. He had a win over the Dixie Kid. And he had a win over the crafty Texan Frank Childs. So Ferns showed the ability to compete with and possibly win against lower level middleweights who were outweighing him, as he was a pretty natural welterweight at 150 pounds. So he could give up 10 pounds and still win, which is a pretty good trait to have, and certainly makes him a very formidable opposition for any of these fighters. So all of the people around Ferns that he's ranked next to, he can has the capability of beating them. And finally, his biggest miss. His biggest miss would probably be missing the welterweight fighter Joe Gaines, who is only a year older. And Gaines, as you will find out in the future here, is fighting some of the matches with a common opponent of Ferns in Barbonas, Joe Walcott, right around this time. And Ferns could have easily got a match with Joe Gaines around 1900 or 1901, right in those years there. He could have got a match with Gaines, and I think he would have been a very formidable match for the welterweight Joe Gaines. as he was could take a severe amount of punishment and had the capability of turning the tables on a match that he was losing. Okay, next we have the newspaper depiction. This is the final item here. Is we use some newspaper's own terms to describe Rube Ferns. Now, Ferns, very often, as you're going to see here in the picture heading, he was most often described as a freak, and because he dressed rather strange at the time, and he looked physically like a farmer, I guess, or an unkept person, which was how he developed the name Rube. And as far as his style, there is one report where the boxer called him slow, boring, and awkward as another assessment. I don't know how quite accurate that is. He's not being very kind, Rube, poor Rube. And Ferns was definitely awkward. I guess he probably could be boring, but he normally wasn't very slow. That is a pretty inaccurate assessment. He had the power to hurt middleweights, which is described in the newspaper, and he had an incredibly left-handed swings, as that was his best match, as he just pounded fighters at close range with his left hand and caused great damage to many good fighters. Okay, so that's the end of the preliminaries there, and now I'm going to take a moment to read you a few stories and statements about right from the mouth of Rube Ferns himself, as he's going to describe about how he got started in boxing and how he got the nickname Rube Ferns. So let's take a look at those now. Okay, now we're going to use some quotes from Rube Ferns here as he describes himself. This is from 1902. Ferns looked on his success with an equanimous perspective in 1902. I am called Rube because I look like one, I guess. I am bald, though but 28 years of age. I have proven myself to be other than a Rube in the ring, however. I am not yet through. Man lives but once, and the sun of the boxer shines bright but for a short time. I am in my prime, my sun is shining, and I will hasten to make little hay. 1902, so he was still in his prime, past the Joe Walcott bout, and about to level up and try and face one of his foes, and Hugo Kelly. That's right around the time when he said that. So now we are going to talk about here a newspaper account of Ferns here. Ferns, whose real name was James, but who was usually called the Kansas Rube, was one of the queerest and most eccentric practitioners of the profession that has attracted many freaks. He is reared on a Pennsylvania farm and always dressed like a stage farmer in go-to-meeting clothes. He was a great believer in walking as exercise productive of health and strength, and even in the palmiest days used to walk hundreds of miles to and from cities where he fought. Old-time sporting editors recall the Rube as a picturesque character. Arriving in a town, his first thought was to make the rounds of the newspaper offices. He was afflicted with an ingrowing vanity and was the friend for life of any sporting editor who would give him a good puff. Any newspaper that boasted the Rube was sure to have its circulation temporarily boosted, for he always bought copies to send to all of his relatives, friends, enemies, and everyone else he could think of. It is allegedly that he even sent marked copies to presidents and kings. Ferns was a tall and angular and did not look like a fighter. He began fighting when he was about 22 years of age and walked over Pennsylvania, challenging and beating all comers. On these trips, he would always put up overnight with farmers rather than city hotels. And he came into prominence in the year 1900 by winning on a foul from mysterious Billy Smith. He first met Matty Matthews, welterweight champion, at Detroit in a 15-round affair, which he won on points. A little later in the same city, Matthews turned the tables. The men were matched for a battle at Toronto, this time with the World Welterweight Championship at stake. It was all Rube, and after giving Matthews a thorough drumming, he knocked him out in the 10th round. Frank Erne, the former welterweight champion, then challenged Ferns, and the pair mingled at Fort Erie, Ontario. Rube winning by a knockout. A little later, at the same place, Ferns met Joe Walcott, the Black Demon of Barbados, and lost his title to the Negro who knocked him out in the 5th round. And that's the end of the article. So that was one of Rube's, his first level up, where he fought Joe Walcott. That was a level up for Rube Ferns. Kansas City Rube was a freak, although he won the title. What a way to be described in the newspapers. Okay, before we start going through Rube Ferns' fights here, we're going to take a moment to look at his peers, and these are the boxers that were born around Rube Ferns. So Rube Ferns was born in 1873. Boxers born in 1873. We'll go right down the list here. George Elbows McFadden, 1873. 1873, Dick O'Brien, 1873. Barbados Joe Walcott, 1873. Matty Matthews. 1873 is Rube Ferns. 1873 is Sailor Tom Sharkey. 1874, Jack Bonner. 1874, Joe Gaines. And 1875, Kid McPartlin, which was a welterweight, and Rube could have definitely faced Kid Partland, as he is right next to him and fighting in the very same years in their primes. So that's a look at the fighters that were the peers of Rube Ferns and born right around the time frame of him. Okay, now we're going to go through Rube Ferns' competitive rounds fights. Like I said, he debuted at the age of 22 in the year 1896. His first competitive rounds match was against Bobby Dobbs, their first fight. Rube Ferns is 23 years old, and the notes from this match are Ferns was 13 pounds overweight for this fight. He would run off during the day, passing several trolley cars in his efforts to reduce his flesh. By the time of the match, Ferns may have been worn out. Ferns gave no indication he was a match for Dobbs, and it was stopped short as it was a very non-competitive fight. And this is one of the very few times when Ferns came up short as he's going to go on quite a win streak here. And I think he really learned his lesson from this match, and he no longer hit the matches overweight, as he was 13 pounds overweight for that match. And this is probably when he started walking from city to city, as he no longer had any problems being in shape in the near future here. His next competitive rounds match is against Bobby Dobbs, number 2. This is in September of 1899. The newspaper reports describe this as Dobbs gave the poorest exhibition of science and fighting ability that has been seen in this town for many a day. He outpointed the Negro 2-1. Ferns is awkward and at the same time clever. Dobbs found him hard to get at, so he kept away and made the contest a frost. As that was a huge win for Rube Ferns. It's a 20-round bout that ended with a 20-round decision win for Rube Ferns. So Ferns is a very eager fighter at this point. Is he gonna continue to try and push his limits to see what he is capable of as a fighter? So, and that was September 1899. So, and just a few weeks into January, he's going to take on Mysterious Billy Smith in January of 1900. And I've seen this fight mentioned several times in articles and by a very, I would say, educated boxing analysis. And in each of the times, I see inaccurate depiction of the fight being told as on Boxrec. You're not going to get all the true story of a match here. And the comments on Boxrec on the Mysterious Billy Smith versus Rube Ferns bout paints a very distorted indicator of what actually happened. And if you do lazy analysis and don't really read up on what actually happened, you're going to have a very distorted and highly inaccurate view of how the match actually went. And now we're going to look at the notes of the true story of how the championship match against Billy Mysterious Smith developed, as I give some highlights for several of the rounds here as we walk our way through the fight. This is January of 1900, and it is scheduled for a 25-round bout. And much like James Jeffries at the heavyweight level, these are mostly scheduled for 25-round bouts at this time, which is a very, very long fight, as you'll see here. The first round, Smith was hissed for hitting in the clutches by the audience. Round 2 was furious as soon as the gong sounded. Both fighters went at each other hammer and tong style as they both held advantages throughout the round. Round 3, both scored a knockdown. Smith was warned for foul fighting as he continued to hit Ferns on the breaks from the referee. Rounds 4, 5, and 6 were described as being fast but uneventful. Round 7, Ferns was badly punished. He slipped down to avoid punishment on his kidneys as Mysterious Billy Smith was repeatedly targeting kidney shots on Ferns, which was an illegal blow, and he continued to try and hit him in the kid. He was warned by the referee constantly, but paying very little attention to it. Ferns got up right away after he fell down. The 8th round was uneventful. The 9th round, fast working. The 9th round, Ferns being sent to the floor as the gong sounded. So in the 9th round, they both went at each other in a very fast style. Ferns got sent to the canvas right as the gong sounded, and he got up and went to his corner. The 10th round, this is where the tide really changes, and the narrative gets very distorted from the Boxrec description here. The 10th round was all Ferns, who rushed and mixed at it merrily. Smith was badly winded as he was running out of energy at this point, and which is the 10th round of a 25-round match, and it's going to cause himself some very bad future indicators here, as Ferns probably spent his time walking to town, so he had no problem being having energy and not being winded. Say rounds 10 to 15, honors were about even, with plenty of roughing and knockdowns for one or the other in every other round. Now on Boxrec, it'll say there that Ferns was knocked down, I don't know what it says, 14, 15 times. There's no indication in any of the newspapers that I'm reading that he went down that match that much. And further, Boxrec is very failing to mention that in each of those rounds there, through the 10 through the 15, that mysterious Billy Smith was also going down, which it has no information whatsoever that that's how the fight was going. So it makes it appear that it was a very lopsided fight in mysterious Billy Smith's favor, but in fact it was just the opposite, as Ferns clearly took the 10th round, and from the 10 to the 15, the honors were about even, with roughhousing and fouling and people going down and people getting back up and people getting even more pissed and dirty, fighting each other. Okay, so we're going to look at round 16. Ferns drove Smith all over the ring with lefts and rights. Smith was clutching in the clinches to avoid punishment. It was hammer and tongs from this time to the finish, with Smith eventually tiring at the fast pace cut out by the Kansas City coal miner. Smith was smashing the kidney often. Referee sent the men to the corners and awarded the match to the Ferns by a low blow. Smith began in the rough work in the clinches, and out of sheer desperation, his fouling was so flagrant that it was stopped. And the most important comment from the entire newspaper here, which so adamantly describes the inaccuracy of a Boxrec description: Ferns had the fight won easily on points. So, contrary to how Boxrec is describing this fight, Ferns was very much the winner, and he did not go down 19 times or 15 times and get fouled, as Smith just completely dominated him. That was absolutely not what happened. Ferns had the fight won easily on points, is the exact phrasing used by the newspaper. Ferns' next bout of consequence was his very next bout. In February of 1900, Ferns was now the welterweight champion, and this is one of the very first matches we're going to do, Volume 1. This is old school versus new school. And by that, I mean fighters who have a tremendous gap in their age. So at this point, Rube Ferns is 26 years old, And Mike Donovan is the new generation at 19 years old, fighting for the welterweight championship. As this is Old School versus New School, Volume 1. We're going to read some of the highlights here from the newspaper. Ferns gave an excellent exhibition of two-handed fighting and all-around fistic skill. There are few of his height and weight who could defeat him. Donovan took punishment of sufficient matters to put 6 ordinary men out of business. Donovan was known for his ability to withstand punishment before entering this bout, and a lot of punishment he did absorb. The contest was not particularly fast bout. Only 2 of the 20 rounds did Mike Donovan show the advantage, as he withstood punishment admirably. Okay, now we're going to read some of the rounds here. The end of the fight, Mike Donovan wanted a draw, and he felt that he got a very unfair decision. Round 1, the matters were about even. Round 2, they mixed rapidly at the gong. Rounds were even. The mixing was fierce to the end of the round. So rounds 3 through 8 are described as being relatively even between the two fighters. Round 9, lefts and rights cut the jaw of Donovan as he started bleeding. Round 10, about even. The 11th, Ferns' all-around work was superb, as he was an example of fistic excellence as he chased Mike Donovan throughout the ring. Round 12, Donovan became more aggressive. There was more clinching as he tried his very best to take the match to Rube Ferns. Round 13, Rube forced the matters. Donovan did a work holding his own. Round 14, Donovan was getting badly outboxed and was starting to lose his confidence. Round 15, Mike Donovan sent a swing to the jaw that staggered Ferns as he stumbled around the ring. Donovan was bleeding badly at the nose at this point, but he was not able to capitalize as Ferns got himself to the end of the round of round 15. Round 16, they went at it fiercely. Both go down in a clinch. They both appear to get up, and Ferns appears quite angry at Mike Donovan for dragging him down in the clinch. Mike swings hard, staggering Ferns as he walked in to take advantage of his fighter. Ferns' mouth was bleeding, and he appeared shaken considerably in this round, as Donovan was unable to capitalize on the opportunity, and the round ended. Round 17. It was a great round, back and forth. They fought wickedly throughout. Ferns landed more blows than Donovan. Round 18. Mike was forced to dance away, but occasionally got a blow home. Round 19. After half a dozen lefts, Ferns dropped Mike Donovan with a right swing to the ear. Donovan was up instantly. Ferns beat Mike around the ring, and he was very groggy as the gong sounded. Round 20. Donovan came out strong from his knockdown. Both men tried for knockouts, but came up short as they went at it hammer and tong style. The match is awarded to Rube Ferns, 20-round win. As I stated, Donovan wanted a draw. And these are Rube Ferns' comments about Mike Donovan after the fight. Donovan is one of the toughest lads in the business. I could have won more decisively, but I had a small bone break in my hand that happened in round 1, and I was forced to fight handicapped through the rest of the match. Otherwise, I would have been able to win more decisively. Nonetheless, Ferns won. He had to give his hand some time to heal after the match, and he fought handicapped and was still able to dominate Mike Donovan, even with a wounded left paw. So, Rube Ferns' next match of competitive rounds happened again in 1900, as he was healed up from his bone break in his hand, and he was about ready to fight Eddie Connolly for the welterweight title. For some reason at this point, Connolly is the champion and not Ferns, even though he clearly had won it off Mysterious Billy Smith and had not lost it. I don't know quite how Connolly was a champion, but he was a champion at that point, and this is Rube Ferns' second chance to win the welterweight championship. These are the notes from the Eddie Connolly fight. This happened in August of 1900. Ferns' last match against Donovan was in February of 1900, and this is in August, so he gave his fist considerable time to heal properly. Ferns' left punches were the most wicked he had ever encountered, described Connolly, and that he had been worn down by them and quit. The first 8 rounds were furiously fast. The 9th and 10th round slightly in Connolly's favor, as he showed superior ring generalship. After the 10th round, it was all Rube Ferns. He pounded his face until blood came from his nose and Connolly's mouth. His left eye was nearly closed at the end of the round of 14. The 15th round, Connolly suddenly stopped in the center of the ring as he gave up his hardened task. He was bleeding profusely from his nose, his mouth, his eye was closed, and he no longer felt that he had the ability to win the match. And he just stopped, and the referee at that point awarded the decision on a TKO victory for Rube Ferns. A TKO win in round 15. Rube Ferns now, once again, the proper welterweight champion. Rube Ferns' next match was going to be with Matty Matthews, and that would be number 1, as immediately after the results of the fight, Matty Matthews calls out Rube Ferns the next day in the newspaper, and he wants to be the next opponent, and he will be. Okay, these are the notes for Rube Ferns, Matty Matthews number 1. This happens on August 30th of 1900. This is the very same month after Rube beat Mike Donovan, as you see here in his pattern here. He wastes no time to find out how good he is. Matty Matthews feeling after this match, he claims that the match should have been a draw. Matty Matthews number 1 was a 15-round win for Rube Ferns, as he successfully defended his welterweight title. The bout was undoubtedly the fastest and the best battle ever fought in Detroit. No knockdowns, but Ferns brought Matty to his knees in the 4th on a slip. The 6th round was vicious infighting. Matthews smashed Ferns so hard he staggered back, slipped, and went through the ropes. As the round came to an end, he was helped back into the ring by his seconds and showed no signs of impediment. Round 11, blood was flowing freely from Ferns' nose. The 12th round, Matty Matthews is staggered. A right cut over Ferns' eyes. Round 13 was about even. Round 14 features hard infighting throughout. Round 15, the round was considered mostly even. At the end of the 15 rounds, the referee awarded Ferns the victor. The majority of the people in the audience were satisfied that the right man was declared the winner. Although it had been a very close match, Matty Matthews felt that he had deserved a draw, but the match was awarded to Ferns, and probably rightfully so. Now, their second match happened in October. At this point, Rube Ferns is 27 years old. Matty Matthews would be right around the same age, as they're born in the same year. This is October of 1900. Rube Ferns, Matty Matthews, number 2. Ferns had a bad right shoulder injury 2 weeks ago. He had blood poisoning in it. He had 3 open sores, and they became bleeding during the fight. The fight was a much slower pace, and the final verdict was that it should have been a draw at the very least. But in fact, Matty Matthews won this match against Ferns, and this was really one of the only matches that he won of Ferns in his prime here. Although Ferns has become slightly out of his prime when they meet again. But most of this match, Ferns' poor showing can be contributed to blood poisoning, and I think that he felt he was strong enough that he didn't have to worry about Matty Matthews that much, and he entered the ring with open sores on his from the blood poisoning and sore bad right shoulder, and he kind of I think overestimated his own ability, and it kind of cost him losing this match. Matty Matthews number 2 was a 15-round loss, but Ferns got 1 point as it was considered a draw. So for my scoring. So at that point, Rube Ferns takes a little bit of time off before he gets the rematch with Matty Matthews. That was in October of 1900, and Rube Ferns, Matty Matthews number 3 is May of 1901, and again, Rube Ferns is 27 years old. Rube Ferns hammered by Matthews for 10 rounds. Ferns was awkward and confident. Matthews was electrifyingly anxious. This is the first time that Matthews was knocked out in 90 fights. Matthews is a polished boxer and Ferns is awkward. Matthews was lightning on his feet. Matthews was down in the 10th round and sprang up quickly, but was very weak. Ferns, with a cross in the center of the ring, Matthews went down to the canvas and was completely out. Ferns, after the fight, expressed his willingness to give Matthews a chance whenever he wanted it. Matthews had delivered a great deal of punishment to Ferns and was ahead on the scorecards when he became knocked out. That was in the 10th round. 10th round KO victory for Rube Ferns as he caught Matty Matthews with a good shot and dropped him. Now, remember I said at the very beginning of the match that Rube Ferns was hammered by Matthews for 10 rounds, but he managed to overcome his diminished state, as I stated in the beginning of his bio. He does this frequently, and he turned the tables on Matthews and got the better of him and secured victory. So that was Matty Matthews number 3 in May of 1901. Now, Rube Ferns' next fight is going to be against the light heavyweight superstar Frank Erne. And this happens in 1901. The light heavyweight legend. Ferns started right after Erne. After his man putting him down in the first round, Erne went down in the first round from a shot. He bounced right back up and shook it off and finished the round strong. Erne was elusive, and Ferns was the aggressor. The 5th round was hot as blood flowed from Ferns' mouth and nose. Rounds 7 and 8, Ferns' face was bleeding badly as he chased Erne around the ring. Ferns' strength was unimpaired by the blood as he just appeared more determined. In the 9th round, Ferns' smashing right dazed Erne. A swinging hard left fell on the jaw, and Erne toppled over backwards and was counted out. It was an impressive win for Ferns, who was just too strong for the lightweight legend. And that was the end of the match. Ferns, a 9-round KO win. So 3 points he would get for that. Ferns' next match was again going to be in the year 1901 as Ferns wasted no time in trying to figure out how good he really was. And in his next match, he was really going to get a dose of reality as he was going to take on the Barbonus demon Joe Walcott. And this was the first of 2 level ups that Rube Ferns had. And by level ups, they're pretty significant to move forward in class, boxing class. And this is the notes from his match with Joe Walcott in 1901. These comments are the day before the fight from the newspapers. Describes Joe Walcott. If he's on form, he would seem to outclass Ferns considerably. The day before the fight. Those are the newspaper comments. Walcott was considerably the favorite in the match. The round began and Walcott battered down Ferns to save Ferns from being completely knocked out. Referee McBride stopped the bout in the 5th round. The 5th round was a fast round. Walcott sent Ferns to the boards twice. Ferns took the counts. When he arose, he was in a weakened condition. The fight was the fastest and the fiercest ever fought in the new clubhouse. Ferns landed some terrific body blows, but Walcott was in the pink of condition. These are Joe Walcott's comments after the fight. They told me Ferns was a hard hitter, but he never hurt me a little bit. And Walcott was grinning from start to finish throughout the match as he punished Ferns considerably. This is a 5-round TKO loss to Joe Walcott, who just completely steamrolled Ferns. So this is really going to show you the capability of a Walcott, because Ferns was coming off of his best wins, and he was in the absolute peak of his prime, and he was absolutely no match whatsoever for the Barbados Demon Joe Walcott, as he just completely dog-walked Ferns and had no trouble whatsoever with him. Okay, that was December 1901. Ferns' next competitive rounds bout happens in January of 1902. No, this is when Ferns makes the comments in the newspaper that he would like a match with the middleweight champion Tommy Ryan. This is the next month that he says this after his match with Joe Walcott, but that match was never going to come to fruition, and Tommy Ryan would have been a considerably high level up for Rube Ferns. So his next match again was a level up, as he again is trying to really push his limits, which is good for Rube Ferns' part. This happens in November of 1902, and this is a match against the Italian stallion Hugo Kelly, and he was the first Italian superstar fighter. And the notes from this match go as this. Hugo finished as strong as he started. Both of Ferns' eyes draped in mourning, and Ferns' nose was twice its normal size. At the finish of the bout, Ferns was in a bad way. Hugo Kelly is a strong youngster, and he possesses lots of power. This is a 10-round loss to Hugo Kelly, hard loss. That gives you 0 points. Ferns' next match was in December of 1902, and Ferns seems decidedly past his prime at this point, as he fights Matty Matthews. This is Matty Matthews, number 4, and it's a 10-round loss as Matty dominates their 4th fight, and these are the notes from that fight. Second, 1902, Matty Matthews, Rube Ferns 4. 9 of the 10 rounds were Matthews. The only round in which Ferns had the better of it was the 6th round, when Matthews had all he could do to escape his opponent's vicious blows. The fight was fast and scientific throughout. 10-round loss to Matthews. The next round was Matty Matthews, number 5. This happens in April 28th, 1903, the following year. At this point, Rube Ferns is the same age as Matthews, 29 years old. Matthews falls and injures his leg tendon, and he's unable to continue. It was a long, wicked fight. The fight was slow in the beginning and wicked after 17. After 7. The 5th round, Matty got Rube in the corner for a few seconds, and it looked as if he would end the fight. But he failed to capitalize. The 7th round, after a clinch, Ferns landed a left that over-toppled Matty. After a hard struggle to regain his feet, Ferns dropped him again with a left hand as he was able to capitalize. Again, Matty Matthews rose on the 9 count, groggy. Matty was sent through the ropes by Ferns as the bell sounded, and Matty was helped back into the ring. As he continued to want to fight more, the following rounds, Ferns beat Matthews around the ring, as he clearly is the superior fighter. Matty Matthews, number 5, was a 10-round loss. The next match is Matty Matthews, number 6. This happens in 1906. So that's quite a few years later after 1903. And I'm going to just quick do that round, that match. Matty Matthews, number 6. Ferns whipped Matty for 9 rounds, but until the knockout, it was fast and evenly fought. Matty was fast and clever. Ferns was boring and constantly taking 2 wallopes to land 1. A heavy left into the pit of Matty's stomach, followed with a flash right across the jaw, heavy enough to fall an ox. Matthews was out for 5 minutes as he woke about quitting boxing. As Rube gets the victory with a 19-round win TKO. Now, another match that is on Boxrec that says it happens, which would give Rube Fern points, was a Dick O'Brien match in 1903. As I stated, the Matty Matthews number 6 was in 1906, but when he was 30 years old, it says that he fought Dick O'Brien in a 10-round draw. And Dick O'Brien is a boxer that is farther ahead on the list here. And that match is incorrect on Boxrec. And the newspapers have him fighting Jack O'Brien. And I don't know if that is Philadelphia Jack O'Brien or not. But he gets a 10-round draw. I give him 1 point for that. I'm not sure which O'Brien he actually faced there, but it wasn't Dick O'Brien, and Dick O'Brien would be a pretty big ask for Rube Ferns, as he's a natural middleweight and rugged and extremely more powerful than the welterweight Rube Ferns. That would be a pretty big level up if it were to happen, and it would be quite the accomplishment if he would get a 10-round draw against Dick O'Brien, but that fight sorely never happened. So now we're down to the end of Rube Ferns' career, as his next competitive rounds match after Matty Matthews was again in December of 1906. At this point, he's 32 and very near the end of his career. I believe this match was March of 1906 against Mike Donovan. Both fighters were weak in the middle rounds, too weak to cause any damage to each other. The last round, both fighters went at it. This was a 6-round match, and the 6th round was the last round. Donovan was the aggressor, landing 2-1 to every blow from Ferns. The match was declared a 6-round draw, as this was Ferns versus Mike Donovan, the rematch, and Ferns was able to escape Mike Donovan's revenge with a draw, and it was the last significant match that Rube Ferns was going to have in his career, as he decided he had enough with the boxing game and decided to go back to coal mining, the job that he had prior to boxing, and one of the very few boxers that went back to the career that he had before he started boxing. Let's see. Rube Ferns died in 1952 at 78 years old after a battle with various illnesses towards the end of his career. He lived to be a very old man at 78 years old, and he led one fascinating barnstorming career and life as he walked all across America, much like Forrest Gump from coast to coast. He walked and he fought all takers and was an extremely formidable welterweight in his prime, and as we've seen in simulation, was more than capable of beating fighters far ahead of him on the list here of the greatest pioneer fighters of this particular era. And Ferns was a outstanding ambassador to boxing, as he refereed throughout the 1910s and was known as a great boxer to all those that came after him. And he had a very significant career. And with a score of 30, he was certainly had one of the higher score cards of any of the fighters here that he's nestled around. And he was certainly very damaging fighter at his best. And that is the biography for Rube Ferns, the Kansas City Rube. Thanks for listening.